one thing that we have to do is gain trust with the men. Sometimes, they won't just automatically trust you, and they probably don't automatically trust anybody, and young people. But if you go in and you know what you want and you're prepared and you give direction, then they will begin to trust you.
Welcome back to another episode of the Rough Cut Club. I am your host, Joey Nicotra, here with my incredible co-host, Mr. Shane Reitzhammer. Shane, how you doing, brother?
Man, and I'm doing great. Whoa, I'm doing so great that my voice cracked on that one.
He's in puberty, y'all.
Because I'm excited. My voice cracked because I'm excited. We have a really dear friend of mine in the studio today.
That's facts.
I'll let you intro her.
Yes, she is an incredible filmmaker who has actually had probably a really big impact on both of our film careers, not just mine, but Shane's as well. And it's definitely a big part of my story. I think she's a big part of your story as well. And so we get to talk with her, and her name is Miss Tammy Lane. Tammy, welcome to the Rough Cut Club.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Yeah. So Tammy owns a little tiny slice of land called Capernaum Studios. And
I wouldn't call it tiny. It thing's massive.
I was saying it sarcastically because
okay. All right, just checking.
It's a. I'm going to get into it. I think that's one of the starting points of what I want to talk about is even Capernaum, and then talk about your story and journey into filmmaking, because Capernaum is a really big piece of the film locations that you've built, the films that you've shot and whatnot. And so for those that don't know about Capernaum, what is Capernaum to you?
Capernaum is a studio on about 40 acres of land, and it's outside of Weatherford, north of Weatherford. It's been a journey with that for sure. So I guess probably in 2006 or something, I got I feel like the Lord, I'm a Christian, so that's a big part of my life, but I feel like the Lord actually gave me the desire to build this biblical village or first century village, because I was doing 7 biblical short films. So I was in the process of this. I don't know if y'all knew this.
I actually didn't know that. This is pre-Crimson, right?
This is pre-me as well.
Yeah.
I think we met in 2012 or 11, sometime early on in my film career. And but I had heard about these 7 films.
Well, you don't want to see them. They're terrible. So it's a little. We did actually get it done, but I really felt called to do it. And I knew a producer friend of mine. Actually, he was a cousin, married to my cousin. So then that made him my cousin as well.
Nice.
I guess.
Married into the family.
Yes. Which he's not in the family anymore. So we just don't
Pause.
But anyway, he came and taught me how to do it, like put me through boot camp for a few months, and we get all those biblical short films done. Well, in the process, we built a village, like a first century village inside of a soundstage, and we built it in about 2 weeks, and then it took about a day to tear it down. And that is what I felt like the Lord used to drop into my heart to build this, set, this permanent set, so that we could actually use it for our films, and other people could come and use it as well. And I felt like that a big part of it was that other filmmakers would come and use it. And so that's what I did. I just told my husband that this is what I wanted to do, and he thought I lost my ever-loving mind, but, through prayer, we did it.
I was going to say, in Capernaum Studios, from the time that I've known Tammy, I've seen it grow so much from, that first century village to now you have, how many different sets do you have, Tammy, out there at Capernaum?
Well, we have some new sets that are early American sets, as you know, we'll
Mm-hmm.
discuss. But we also have a large soundstage, a smaller soundstage. We have a 30,000 square foot statue garden that's got some really cool stuff that people use for filmmaking in there as well. And we also have all the production facilities, that everybody needs, office space and lodging and a place for like people to eat and gather and have meetings and whatnot.
You
So,
also have the villages down at the bottom of the garden, which I think is a separate location, right? And then you have the cabins that we shot at recently, which is separate section of that
yeah.
as well. And then you also have some like in the forest locations too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of land too. So,
Yeah.
if you wanted a forest or if you need something, we even have a ravine that looks like Israel, which you filmed in.
Yeah.
And
I've shot there a couple of times. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, and it's just bizarre that that's there, but it is. So
Mhm,
I'm so
mhm.
thankful for that. Lots of people have used it, and so yeah.
Yeah.
And they've had all different types of shows and films out there from
Mhm.
The Chosen. I know filmed lots of
Mhm.
different seasons out there. Maybe they still do. And then I know some feature films have come through. And then of course I'm sure we'll get into it as well. But
Uh-huh.
Washington's Armor,
Mhm.
a lot of that film was filmed on site at Capernaum Studios.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love watching the growth of it. So I remember, if I can share a quick story here,
Yeah.
selfishly, but Tam and I were working on she does live experiences. I think this is important to say too. They have a lot of amazing interactive live experiences where you walk through Capernaum, a part of
Sets.
Capernaum and sets, and there's live actors,
Theatrical production.
and you get pulled into the scenes, and it's so engaging. Highly recommend. Go to their website. You can see when these events come up, and that's a good way to see the sets as well. But then see actors and everything in action. But we were shooting some content for an experience that they were putting on at the time called the Apocalypse Experience, and we were doing some green screen in one of the shops that they use. And I remember talking with Tammy, and this is way back, and I was like, what are you gonna call this? Because it was Capernaum at the time, and I was like, is this Tammy Lane Studios or something like that? And basically, by the end of the shoot, we were joking around Capernaum Studios, and that's what it's grown into. It's a full-fledged, beautifully created, well-run studio.
And it's super unique too. Like there's so many film studios out there, but I've never seen a studio that has so much to offer with like the modern sound stages, but also at the cyc walls. You also have the 180-degree volume wall that you can do virtual production in.
The LED wall. Yeah.
The LED wall, the forest space, so much like period piece space there too. It's just a really unique place that you can tell is built with a lot of like intentionality, which I think is really cool and speaks to your vision for filmmaking in general.
I think we just gassed up Capernaum Studios
Yeah,
so
we
much,
did.
but this is two filmmakers that really
Right.
enjoy filming out there. So again, if you're a filmmaker, you're looking for a location, contact Capernaum Studios and go tour it or look at the photos
Yeah.
because
Come out.
it's a great spot.
Yeah.
And I hear they're connected with some really good crew too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll kind of come back to the Capernaum piece too, but I want to actually kind of dive into your story. And so talk to me about day one of, your interest in filmmaking. Did it start, where did that start? What were the projects you were working on? Like, how did you kick off your journey?
Well, so I would get a script idea. Basically, that's kind of how it started with me. I mean, I do write scripts, and so I would get a script idea, and then feel very compelled to, get it done and produce it and whatnot. And just like this last one that we worked on. And so that kind of how it starts. And then I would need the sets, and so if we didn't have it at Capernaum already, then we would build it. So we built some sets, and then we have sets that other people can rent out. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
how I started, is just really, and then at first, obviously, I didn't know anything about it. Like, I never went to film school, um, never, even thought that this was what I would do. But then once I got those scripts in my mind, in my heart, I wrote them out. And then I thought, okay, now I've got to figure out how to do it. And it's really fun at the beginning, and you're like, oh, I'm so excited to do this. This is gonna be great, and oh my gosh, I just can't wait, and we'll do this and this. And then once you're in the middle of it, it's like, oh, this is so hard.
When is it over?
Why did I
Yeah.
do this? But yeah, so then I just had to learn and get people to teach me and figure it out. And it took, I'm still learning tons, like on Washington's Armor. I'm like still learning what everything's called and who this person's called and what they do. And because I just kind of got in there and just did what made sense. And then we got all the real filmmakers in there, and they're like, this is what this is, and this is what this is, and you call this. And I'm like, okay, it's a lot of information.
I think that's cool though, because there's something to be said about just jumping in when you're not prepared for what you're getting into. And I think, that's most filmmakers' experience, in that we dive into this because we have an excitement about something, and then we realize, like, wow, there's so much technical stuff that I don't know or that I'm not prepared for, but you figure it out and you make it work. And, I think that's a lot of filmmakers' current situation, where they're in the middle of trying to push boundaries on what they can do, what they're able to create as an artist. And I think it's an inspiring testimony to hear, jumping in and building film sets and bringing these scripts to life without, film school background or whatnot. I think it's really cool and inspiring for other filmmakers out there.
Well, and having a great team, people that you really want to be around and create with. It just makes it, so much fun, and then you can tackle the challenges together
Right.
instead of, because you cannot do it by yourself.
Yes.
Got to have a lot of people, a lot of help.
So, and I want to even talk on even before, or I guess you guys can both fill me in on this, but y'all filmed a reality TV show. Was that like after the early days of filming, then you went in and got into TV? And so tell me a little bit about that process.
Well, I was really drawn to mission work and also filmmaking at that time. And so it's funny because I watched a show on, this is going to sound weird, but I watched a show, like a documentary on people with leprosy. And that's what got me. So I had such a desire to go to India. It was on people in India that had leprosy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just really want to go and help these people. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. And then I figured out a way to get over there, which was not the right way to do it. I would not recommend doing
but it
what
worked.
I did. But yeah, because I met some bad people over there. But yeah, we did. We ended up going over there, got a team together, and did a reality show. And then we started doing ministry with the right people. We found the right people through this, and we started doing ministry. And we would go over there, and that's when you came into the picture. And we would film. Each time we took a trip, we'd take teams, and we would just go, to leper colonies. We'd go help the orphans and the widows, and just, be there and have the team. And it was just fun. It was a neat, fun time, wasn't it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, and just going back to how we first met, I believe, all the right pieces came together, and it was such a godsend for me at the time too. I I was in the restaurant industry, and one of my regulars, his name was John. I can't remember his last name, and I wish I could. But his daughter went to the same private school as your daughters. And this is how I first met Tammy Lane. And I guess he had passed my info to her because I would talk about, how I graduated from film school. I was doing some corporate, side gigs here and there, wanted to do it full time. And Tammy reached out. We had a conversation. I think we met actually at a Rosa's cafe, delicious tacos that Tammy may know something about. And we talked, and she had this project of me editing her daughters, or actually the school's dance team's video. They put on like this really cool video recap, I think. And so she told me about the project, and I think I did that a year or two.
Or 3, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was her like audition for me. She was seeing, who is this guy? Can he edit? Do I like him? Do I trust him? And so I think probably a year after, whenever that next trip came up, which was in January, we would usually go in January. They had gone several years before me, and Mission Reality had existed, and I think had stopped at that point. I think the actual TV show they had stopped, but they had done several episodes in India, Africa. But this was a separate thing. This was called Mission Love Exchange,
Right.
and then I think it became Mission Now, I think later down the road. But she had offered me to come film with them in India. And then my mind's blown, right? Like at the time I was looking actually at a 9-to-5 job as a film producer with a medical company. I don't know if you knew this. Or go to India with Tammy Lane on this project that sounded super interesting and exciting. And had to weigh the options. So glad that God led me to go with Tammy, because it was life-changing experience. And it really helped develop more of the entrepreneurship, the freelancer, gigs that I got to do instead of doing a 9-to-5 in a corporate America pharmaceutical video, production house. And so that is the story. And yes, it was a blast. We would go for 8 or 9 days, film. It was pretty crazy getting into India.
Yeah.
We have a lot of stories, probably not enough time for this podcast. But we ended up working on a documentary together, which is still in progress. And then we made a bunch of promos and video content for donations and for sponsors. And then that's how it led to the opportunity. I'd love for you to talk about the last, I guess, Mission Reality kind of came back around, and we got to do one. I actually got to do a season, and that was my first attempt at reality TV with Tammy, and we got to go to Central America.
Yeah, we went to Honduras and Guatemala, and we did it with another ministry, and that was what was that? The water?
It was
No, the shoes. They
shoes and water.
Yeah. I
And
forgot the name of
we
it,
can't
though.
think of the Mission Reality, Millions from One.
Yeah,
there we
Millions
go.
from One,
It's
there you
on.
go.
It's on Hulu or Amazon. I think you can
I
go.
think it's on Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah, you can go
Nice.
download it and watch it.
Yeah, so that was fun. That was a good experience. But yeah, I mean, whenever the dad that contacted you, I was doing the editing and the filming of all their dance team stuff, and have to go to all their games and all that. Well, then I was doing the editing, and I just hate editing so much because I'm just not technical, and I would have all these technical problems every time, and I'd just be like, oh, it's driving me crazy. And so then he told me about you, and I was like, yes, thank you, God.
That's
I
awesome.
need an editor.
Mm,
So
that's that collaboration thing.
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
Tammy and I think all three of us are big on that. That's what Cinema Story is all about. We wanted to create a space where the things we didn't want to do, somebody else that loves doing it can do it. So at the
Mhm.
time, I loved editing. So it was a great fit, and I loved filming. And Tammy then would let me, slowly she trusted me to come and start filming things, and then that's how I got to go to India and the Mission Reality, and then we've done a handful of. She's trusted me to DP some of the projects back in the day and edit. So we've got to create a lot of content together and a variety of content. So
Mhm.
yeah, Thanks, Tammy.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun, and you're still around. So
Still here.
She can't get rid of me.
That's awesome, man. Well, I want to first of all, I have to see some of this stuff. I can't believe I still haven't seen anything from it, but I know that was several years ago, and since then you have shifted your focus more to the narrative space. And correct me if I'm wrong, but your biggest film to date being Washington's Armor. Talk to me a little bit about Washington's Armor, what that is, and what inspired that film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I read a book called The Bulletproof George Washington, and this book depicted George Washington getting it was a long journey for Washington, but it depicted him getting shot in his jacket 4 times, but the bullets never, or the musket balls, never touched his body, and so it just went through his jacket, and it didn't. And so it was basically God's protection over his life and God's providence to get him to where he needed to be, to be the first president of our country. So the story really fascinated me, and the whole journey that he took that we did film fascinated me because of his perseverance and how difficult the trials were that he had to face and maneuver through. And, it inspires me, and it helps me not to ever have pity parties, which I do have pity parties sometimes. But when I do, then I think, well, Washington did that. And then so I'm sitting here, having a pity party over little stuff. But anyway, so then, we actually got to do it. And we got the funding from donors and people that really believed in the project. And we got to do volume 1.
So cool. So from what I've heard with like the Capernaum, build out, even kind of the exploration of like the leprosy documentary stuff and this, which takes place in the 1700s, have you always had a passion for like period piece type of script writing? And if so, where did that come from?
I don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
But yes, I was asked to direct a film recently that we haven't done yet, but it's more of a more current, and I was like, I don't know. Do I like that? But it actually does have some period parts of it, and so it's going to be an awesome film. But yeah, I just love history, and I love I don't know why I do. I love period stuff.
Talk to me about some of the challenges that go into directing a film that has period piece elements in it, because I feel like it's one of the harder types of films to make because of all of the costumes and the props and the, setting the background for everything. Like it can't be easy to do a period piece as opposed to doing a modern day film. Talk to me about like the process just in making a period piece film.
I mean, like the costumes, for example, we got reenactors to do our costumes that were that knew the costume, and reenactors down to the button. They do it accurate. And if you get one stitch, different, then they're like, well, that's not exactly how that was. So then you've got to decide, okay, do I want to, fudge this a little bit, or should we go exactly? And I'm glad that we did that because I wanted to know what it's like. So we built a costume, the costumers, that is exactly what George Washington would have worn. And it's this thick wool and just real itchy and heavy. But it's beautiful, it's just amazing, and they put the right buttons on it and all that. But trying to find, the right fabrics, trying to find the right buttons and all that was really challenging. And then the props also, because, we live in Texas, and you go in an antique store in Texas and looking for, 18th century props from the north, it's hard.
Yes.
So it's just not readily available. And so just trying to find that. But we had some great people, working on that to gather what we have gathered and been able to use, a lot of. So now we have a lot of costumes and we can rent those out now.
Love that.
On the directing side too, what talk about casting and then just crew, all of that. How's that journey been for you on your first feature film? And then I'm sure, like, how did you choose the cast for Washington's Armor for these monumental roles that some of these characters you have to work with for three feature films, right?
It's risky. You take risks. But we got a great cast. I prayed about it and, really labored over it because I wanted to make the right decision. I didn't want to, because I knew that, I didn't want it to be to pick the wrong person. And thankfully, I feel like we have a great cast, and they really own the roles and fulfill the roles very well. I wanted to meet people in person. So that's when, we got all the videos. We chose some of the videos that we liked the best of the auditions. And then we had them come in for their, in-person audition. And then we had to have a horseback riding audition for Washington because people will say that they can ride a horse, but then when you actually see them, they'll be like, well, it's been, 20 years and I was on a horse when I was,
Fudging the resume just a hair.
just a hair. And so I'm glad we did that. And so Willie Molina, who plays George Washington, he got on the horse and he looked supernatural. And now he's been bucked off of a horse. He's really had some challenges on the horses for the show. But when he got bucked off, he just went and rolled and stood right back up, didn't he?
He's a trooper.
Funny.
That Willie Molina.
Yeah, that Willie Molina.
Yeah.
Well, so I know some of these, but for our audience, talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced with Washington's Armor in the creation process. Because I know it wasn't, smooth sailing from point A to point B. There was a lot of hiccups like COVID and, crazy unforeseen things. Talk about some of the challenges that you had in making that film.
There were so many. Let's see.
Besides working with Shane.
That's the easy part.
Yeah.
Well, I think a specific challenge that I had that other people probably wouldn't have, other filmmakers, is just that I have Capernaum and I have a Capernaum staff, and then I also brought in a filmmaking crew, and trying to mesh those two entities was extremely difficult. In fact, I think that was the most difficult thing
Interesting.
that I faced because the filmmakers, they go from job to job and this is what they do and they contract out and they, and then they come here and the staff, they're full-time employees. And so they work every day with me. They work every day at Capernaum. And so to find people that could blend with that well and respect each other was difficult. And but we finally, now I think we have our
integration process dialed in a
so
little
we
bit
have
better.
our crew that I love to work with, but it did take some time to get to that point.
Yeah.
And then we also had, weather, the weather challenges because we filmed in the snow. And it was just freezing, and I'm a Texas girl. I don't like the cold. And
for people that hear the word snow, this is not just like, oh, it was like 30 degrees and we just barely got snow. It was like negative 10 degrees up in the mountains of New York in the Adirondacks.
Snow up to your knees.
Yeah, it was blizzarding, and like we had to keep heaters on
cameras.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing heaters, like portable heaters on C-stands, like that were flown up to be like right next to the camera to keep them warm enough just to turn on.
And a lot of this, actually, I got to jump in because a lot of this you can go to Washington's Armor's website or YouTube page.
Mhm.
And we were blessed to do a lot of the behind the scenes content. Cinema Story came in and did a lot of the behind the scenes content for a period for Washington's Armor, and they continue to do it. So you can actually watch the journey, and we have some crazy episodes of the snow and the filming in the snow. And then I remember Joey and we actually were on a part of the Washington's Armor journey together in Oklahoma, and that cold.
Oh, my
If you're talking about
gosh.
weather,
It
some
was
reason that was bone chilling cold. And Joey was DP at this time. We got to talk about how you got introed into
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
this, but he was DP, and the lenses, we have Cook lenses out there, and the oil in the lenses freeze. Didn't even know that was a thing, but they froze. We couldn't turn focus on these lenses. And so, talking about heaters, we're sitting in front of these heaters blasting heat. We put them in cars in between takes to melt the oil inside the lenses. Insane.
Yeah. It was definitely extreme conditions throughout most of this in one way or another. But yeah, I think that was like an unforeseen that I was not prepared for when the grease.
Why weren't you
inside-
prepared?
Yeah. I didn't know the grease inside of a lens could freeze. So anyway, if you are working in freezing conditions, make sure that your camera is properly heated, or it can lock up on you while there's 60 people on set waiting for you, asking, why aren't we rolling yet?
But I just have to insert, we knew that there was problems, but they're over there working on it, and they just were so calm. They were just so calm. I know they were freaking out on the inside, but they're just on set. They're just so professional and kind, and and everybody's like.
I think that day in Oklahoma is probably one of my hardest film days in my career thus far, because I don't think I got to go inside other than for like lunch or dinner, and it was almost 14 hours in, I think that was like 10 degrees outside or something.
It felt colder.
It was
than
windy,
New York.
too.
I was
It
more.
did,
I was
yeah.
more warm in New York.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me
I
too.
had like electric heated gloves and socks and like 4 layers on, and was still miserable for like 12 hours straight.
And the poor actors. I mean, because they had to wear the costumes.
and you made them like to be accurate for the times, and they weren't insulated like ours were.
No, I just felt so bad for them. And then we tried to keep them in warm spaces, and yeah, it was extremely challenging.
Everybody survived, and the footage looked amazing.
Yeah. Sometimes extreme weather produces the coolest looking shots. Like
Agreed.
if you watch The Revenant, you're like, oh my gosh, they actually were out there, which felt very similar to what we were doing in
Yeah.
New York, but it produces images that you can't
beautiful,
CGI
yeah.
in. It's just real, it's authentic.
Mhm.
And whenever you're able to put yourself in those extreme weathered, environments, the footage looks,
Yeah.
you get what you pay for.
And that's right. That's right. And what about the heat?
Yes.
Mm.
Well, and not only the heat, but even in the trenches in the forest, like we were losing our radio frequencies on our Pterodex, and just like the amount of environmental conditions that we had to overcome to make that film. It was like one location was cold, one was super hot, one was raining. Sometimes,
Sometimes we wanted rain, so we had to create rain machines. And then,
Right.
of course, like 2 days later, it's raining.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's
And it
right.
rained out our battlefield, and we lost, I think, a whole
Mhm.
day just to rain on our battle sequence.
lightning strikes.
And just, it was a lot of weather hiccups for sure. Intermittent clouds, which are my arch nemesis as a DP, because I can't control anything.
While you
rough.
sit there and wait, everybody looks at the sky
Yeah.
and waits for the.
Just looking at Joey like, when are you okay, brother?
Speaking of Joey, I feel like we gotta talk about how Tammy and Joey got connected.
Yeah.
and because y'all two work closely together now as director and DP.
Yeah. Well, and it started back, I actually at Crimson, which was the short film that you did. That was my very first intro to Tammy. Yeah, so I actually got to be there for Crimson, which was cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I got to jump in.
Yeah.
Tammy wanted some behind the scenes for Crimson. It was a short film that I got to DP and edit, or our production house edited, and we brought on Joey to do the BTS. And Tammy, what did you think of Joey and his footage? Do you remember Crimson and having him there?
Yeah, I do.
You're like,
I
who
do.
is this kid?
Yeah, who is he? I thought that he was obviously really good at it, really good at doing the BTS and getting people to talk, and great personality, easygoing, easy to get along with.
Man, you're making me blush over here,
And
Tammy.
So, which is one reason why you're DP.
There we are.
So, yeah, here we are. But yeah, it was good. And then you did some Washington's Armor
Yeah.
at the beginning of Washington's Armor, some BTS.
Yeah. And it's a cool little like elevator pitch short story when I feel like I say it, but I started out on Washington's Armor day one as the behind the scenes videographer and was not helping the production at all, just documenting it. And after COVID, which put almost a year-long gap in production, I was asked to be a second unit B camera operator on that leg of the production, which kind of led me to being close to the second unit director at the time, who we got to work together with. And then there wound up being a change in directions with the DP after that. And I got to then move to first unit DP of the project. And so literally got to go from what I would call the bottom all the way up to leading out in the production throughout the course of one film, which is a really cool experience and process for me. So thank you for trusting me with that.
And so for people listening too, at the very beginning when we said, we weren't joking when we said Tammy greatly influenced both of our film careers, because, the story from BTS videographer to DP of a feature film, that's insane. And it's a beautiful story. I love it. And then for me, you helped me break into the industry, get out of the restaurant industry, and travel all over the world and do reality and documentary and not get stuck in a 9-to-5. Thank you, Tammy.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I feel like one thing I can do, or the Lord's blessed me with, is to see potential in people when even they can't see that potential. And so that's kind of what I saw in both of you, your potential and the way that you are, just your character and your personalities, and you're a joy to be around. So, and you're just really good at it and professional. And so it was a no-brainer, really. Just
Love that.
bringing you on as DP. I mean, I think that we work really well together. All three of us, I think, work really well together. And I think that, there's no egos, and it's, a collaboration, and we can trust one another and see the ideas come to life, and I'll let you do some of your ideas, most of your ideas. And they usually turn out great.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like it's just one big family on set, and so we all get along. But then the siblings, we all fight every once in a while too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I'm definitely grateful for just being entrusted with the project, because I know it was, whenever you're entrusting a DP to bring your vision to life, that's a lot of responsibility for me to carry and for you to give away. And so I'm very grateful that you trusted me in that process, and glad to see, what we got to create, and look back and be proud of it together. And now we're making other films together, and it's been a cool process.
So can you tell the listeners, like, how do they get involved? Washington's Armor, or what's happening next? Like, what's kind of on the radar for that? Or how can people get involved, or even go watch Washington's Armor Volume 1?
So Washington Summer's on Vudu, and you can watch it there. You can go to washingtonsummer.com and click on it, and then it will take you directly to the link to get it. And yeah, we're just working on getting the scripts ready for the next ones, and excited about that. And we just did a short film.
Yep.
We all did this together as well for our Independence Day Freedom Fest that is going to be at Capernaum Studios on July 1st and 2nd. So you can go to capernaumstudios.com and get tickets for that. That's a live immersion experience, but also I like to kick off the live immersion experiences with a short film that intros what you're about to experience. And so I believe this film that we just did is really going to do that.
Yep.
So,
Super cool. I want to go back even to the director DP piece a little bit more and dive into a couple more things before we wrap out of here. But a lot of our listeners are filmmakers. They're shooters and, directors, but also DPs as well. As a director, what are some of the most important things to you in that collaboration process with your DP and your team?
I think mutual respect is a big deal. And, I want to, I don't know everything about being a DP. I don't know, you're seeing the vision of the lights and this and that, and I'm seeing something. But I want to hear, I'm very collaborative. I feel like am I? I don't know. Maybe I just think I am, and I'm really not. But I want to hear what your thoughts are on it, and so I really kind of enjoy that process. And just like the shot that you wanted to do with the putting the musket under the bed.
Yeah.
And that turned out great, by the way. I really
Love it.
love that shot. And, I like to hear that. And then if there's something that, I know that I have to have it a certain way, and then I can tell you, and then you're like, okay, even if you disagree, then you'll relent, and you'll be like, okay, and you won't be upset
Nope.
and angry, and you'll just, we can just move on. And so that's really important. I think you have to have someone that your personalities, you can connect with, because if you don't, it's just not going to be near as fun.
Right.
Or, it just makes it more stressful. And then if there's tension, so, I would just, if there's a director that's looking for a DP, I would just say, find somebody that you really connect with and that you can listen to each other, and the egos aren't there. And, that's just kind of
Yeah.
what I like.
And Shane can even speak to this as well too, because you've directed, thousands of projects together with me now at this point, at least several hundred. We don't always see eye to eye on set either, and it's part of it. Like you have to have a collaboration experience, but at the end of the day, like the director has a vision for the project that my job is to bring to life. And if I, see bringing it to life in a certain capacity or direction that's different than what they have in mind, well, at the end of the day, like it's not my film. I just am tasked to bring that vision to life. And you have to be able to, as a DP, be like, let me trust you, directors, to execute this film. And so there's a trust on my end as well that you guys have the vision, the grand master plan, and can see even a piece of it that I can't at times, which has happened to me with both of y'all's projects. I've gotten to the final edit and been like, that was why they did that, and they were right. And it's it's a great thing. That's part of like trusting your director to do justice with the project. And Shane and I have definitely not seen eye to eye on certain things, but it's like you have to
Well, it
Yeah,
goes to
work
trust.
through it,
It goes to
right.
trust. And I think Tammy and I can both say that too. On the other side, I've seen stuff that you fought for, and then I see it in the edit. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was a great idea. I'm glad we argued enough
Right.
about that,
Right.
or I gave him the time to.
The time.
Yeah.
I gave him the extra hour to hang the light, hang the moon, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and it was worth it because it looks so cinematic.
Yeah.
So I think, I echo everything Tammy says. I think, the collaboration, mutual respect, but also like, at the end of the day, the director, like you're saying, the director, it's the ultimate call for the vision of the film.
Right.
And so like egos aside, that's a big thing too. I do like I like to enjoy working
Yeah.
on a film set, and I've had it both ways as well. And so when you work with people that you like and that you mutually respect, and that can let those things go too, right? And so it goes to trust and trusting each other on both sides. I love seeing that. I feel like a small part because I brought Joey in, and you
Yeah.
guys have connected now, and y'all have such a
You're
good
the glue.
relationship that together, and I've seen y'all's trust grow, and I think it still continues to grow as y'all do more projects together.
Yeah.
But it's so important, and you only get that by spending time in relationship on sets, right? That's why it's so hard. I think people reuse the same people all the time because that trust is the most important asset. If you don't have that trust, and that's what you have to build and nourish
Yeah.
and protect
Yeah.
on set, and in professional and personal relationships.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, and so like James Cameron, one of the most iconic directors of all time, uses Russell Carpenter on most every one of his projects, even like going back to the 80s, he's still using him today. And it's because they've built this rapport and this relationship together where a lot of times they don't even have to say each other's thoughts because now they already know what the other person is going to want. And so like when Shane and I do a project together, he already knows how I'm going to light stuff, how I'm going to, ask for things to go away. I know what questions how he's going to guide the story because we know each other's style as well. Just like I've come to learn your style and how you do things and vice versa. And I think that as a DP director relationship, having that understanding of how each other operates, which to Shane's point, you have to build over time, makes you a more powerful team than when I'm working with a first time director. It's like hey, I'm going to, put my opinion here, but I don't know how you're going to respond when I say, I don't know if we should do it this way for the first time or vice versa. There's a lot of like discovery in how each other's dynamic is. And so I think that in time, when you build that relationship, you become better filmmakers together.
Yeah, I agree. And you need to find somebody that has your philosophies because there are different lighting philosophies.
100%.
Which I
And
didn't
storytelling
realize that.
philosophies.
Yeah. And so, you want to find somebody that is like-minded in that way as well.
And that's also hard to discover too. Like you have to
It
do
is.
the
It
time
really
and the
is.
research and sharing of ideas. And I mean, it's a whole relationship. It's a dance at the beginning, and then it's a marriage.
Right.
It's a marriage. And but it's beautiful when it does come together and it comes together well. And I think you've done that really well with your Capernaum staff, and then even the crew that you bring in.
Yeah.
Watching Washington's Armor come to life too. So I have a question. So since you've helped us with our careers so much, what is there any advice that you would give to filmmakers potentially like starting out, or like how would you in your story of starting out, right? You kind of just said, I'm going to do it, and you did it. And you trusted God, and God has provided all these opportunities for you to be successful in filmmaking. What would you tell future filmmakers or people listening to this podcast how to get started in filmmaking?
Get your phone out and start filming.
Just start.
Get your camera out, get your phone, watch your YouTube videos of people, and learning it, and get someone to help you. Get a team, or even if you start with one other person, that you trust, and then you just do it together, because one man show does not work very long anyway.
Yes.
Uh, and I think that lighting is extremely important and sound
Yeah.
is extremely important. And if you don't have good sound audio, it's just not going to be very good.
Yeah.
So try to get really good sound that's not, real echoey or just, that's kinda
Quality
what I
Yeah.
say
sound,
about
yeah.
Nobody's
quality.
gonna watch it if they can't understand what's being said.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've heard sound is 90% of a film is sound,
Yeah.
and it's that
Yeah.
important.
And
Oh, and you know what else? Background actors do matter.
this is good. This is
Mm.
good.
So if you trust someone to get you background actors and you don't okay
Vet
it or
them.
vet them and make sure you don't double check, you could have an issue.
Yes.
So they do matter. I'm real picky about that. So
That's
um,
good.
because
That's
that some background, they think that they just have to sit there and not do anything, but their face may say it all. Their expressions on their face matters, and what their actions are. And some people can't. You say, "Oh, I need you to run down this little alleyway." Some people just can't run. I
Mm.
mean,
yeah.
they look awkward when they run. So you just have to make sure that you get the right background people.
Well, and location can make or break your film, right?
Mhm.
Like everyone knows, like location is such a huge part of the background that people see when they watch your film.
Mhm.
And when you put a background actor into a location, they become part of the background or part of the location because you're seeing them just even in your subconscious. And so if you have someone who's moving really awkward, that becomes part of the environment that you're pulling your audience into.
Mhm.
And so, just as important as picking an incredible background is picking an incredible background actor because they're filling that background.
Shout
Exactly.
out to all the good background actors
Yes.
and extras then.
So
Because
many.
I've had
Yeah.
that too. A face,
Yes.
somebody's face that you direction and direction and direction, and you're like,
One
this is
ear and out the
this is
other.
ruining my beautiful shot. And I'm like, do we just here step this way
Yeah.
all the way out of frame? Perfect. There you go. That's
Yeah.
the spot.
I
And you
love
don't
it.
want to hurt somebody's feelings. But when we were in Oklahoma in Lawton, that we had some great background
Yeah.
Yeah.
there. I mean, they were amazing. So
Yeah.
we've had some good and some bad, but there are a lot of amazing background people that can actually do a great job with that.
That's really cool. Well, I have one more question. I know we're probably running a little late, but I want to ask one more question for you before we get into our 5 questions that we ask every guest. But as we get further and further, in time, we're seeing more female filmmakers come onto the scene where filmmaking has predominantly been led by a bunch of men for the last 50 years or whatever. How has your experience been being a female director? Because I think there's a lot of female filmmakers that are coming up now and they're more prevalent.
Hmm.
Talk to me about maybe what your experience has been like, just as a female director in the field.
Well, I think one thing that we have to do is gain trust with the men because sometimes, they won't just automatically trust you, and they probably don't automatically trust anybody, and young people. But if you go in and you know what you want and you're prepared and you're ready for it and give direction, then they will begin to trust you and then you can, and then it seems fine. But, at first, when I first started out on Washington's Armor, um, I had never been in that type of environment because all the other films we did, like I just said, we just did what made sense. And I was with you mostly and, our Capernaum staff. And so we just did it. But this was all these professional filmmakers, and it was very intimidating at first. And then I just had to go, okay, you know what? I know what I'm doing. I know what I want. I know that God's called me to do this, and I'm just going to go in and do it. And, and so it worked out.
And I think I can speak to that too on the other side of the coin, just being like a younger filmmaker and a younger DP. I feel like I can relate to that in the sense of when you come onto a project, a lot of times you have to prove yourself. And so if you are a young female filmmaker out there or a younger male filmmaker out there, there is a certain element that you have to be prepared to prove what you can do and on a film project. And so in terms of just advice for those people out there, the more preparation that you can do for a project, and the more that you can hone your craft, the more prepared you will be to step into an arena where everybody is ready to tear you apart. And just based on your ability and what you bring to a project.
Right.
So, well, that
covers it.
So every episode we have 5 questions we ask every guest, and it's kind of a rapid fire round. I like to call it, even though it's not that rapid.
Did I know this was going to happen?
No, this is the surprise. But they're just kind of some questions again to help guide other filmmakers and even us too. So the first one we have: if you could go back and do it all over again, what's like one thing that you would have changed?
I would do the film all at the same time. I did a whole bunch of different shoots because I get the money to do, this part of it and this part of it and this part of it. And that's what I did. And it was very challenging that way, getting the right crew and actors. And then COVID happened, so we couldn't, do some anyway then. But that's what I do.
That's good. What excites you the most about the current film industry or market?
I'm excited that a lot of it's coming to Texas.
Yeah.
Amen.
I mean,
Super
it's
good.
and I'm hoping, incentives get better and, if people come out to Capernaum Studios to film, then, it's pretty affordable. We can work with budgets and, so even if the film incentives are not fantastic, it still can be affordable.
And they just announced that they're building like another $47 million like film studio within an hour of DFW or something like that coming in a couple of years, which is pretty exciting. So a lot going on. Lots going on. What is one piece of advice that you can give to filmmakers trying to grow in their craft or in their business?
I thought I already gave that advice. Let's see.
She's like, rewind the tape, play it back, move it on.
I would say I would go back to audio. And the Foley sound, the sound of footsteps or paper or this cup setting down, all that matters as well. And to be aware of, clothes rustling and, I hear all those things or don't hear when they should be. So I think it's important.
It's an immersive part of the project and what really brings you into the world of the film. And they say that if sound is done well, you won't notice it. But if you notice it, then it wasn't done well.
Yes.
And so if you pay attention to sound in a film, then that probably means that they didn't do a great job. But if you're so immersed in the Foley and sound design of a project, then it can really make an audience get lost in the film, which is always the goal. So,
yes.
Love it.
That's right.
Where as an industry are we headed in filmmaking right now, and what should we be focusing on?
What I'm passionate about is faith-based, historical, inspirational type films. And those type films, I think, are headed for the quality upgrade. I think that the quality of those films have really skyrocketed in the last year or two, because in the past it was kind of but now I just think it's really going in the right direction, and I'm really excited about that.
Love that.
Agreed.
The final question for our final 5 is: who is one filmmaker that you admire and why?
This might not be popular, but I think about Mel Gibson
Mm.
because, I mean, he was an actor, but then he was a filmmaker and he did The Passion of the Christ. And I just know some things that he went through on that set. And, it inspires me that he was able to get through all that and do such a fantastic show. And anyway, so that's, I guess, what I would say.
That's cool. If you don't mind sharing, I actually don't know some of the stuff that he went through. Do you have anything off the top of your head that
Well,
you know?
I know that the actor that played Jesus, Jim Caviezel, he was struck by lightning. He was injured, a lot.
Was he
And
struck by lightning on that production?
yeah,
Wow. I did not know that.
yes. And also, just the immensity of going through that as a director, that Mel Gibson had to do is get everybody through that, get Jim Caviezel through that and get him through this whole shoot. And then they also had weather elements and just all kinds of things that they had to struggle with. So, but yeah.
The spiritual warfare was real in
Yeah.
that. And I feel,
Wow.
I joked when I was on Crimson, and partly joking, but I said, yeah, I really have to prepare every time I go to film for Tammy Lane because, and it's a beautiful thing. I love the fact that when she gets something on her heart, it is from God, and she knows it is, and she goes out and she accomplishes it, right? And so, but talk about Washington's armor and all the chaos that came at you, right, and attacked you. So Crimson, I'll keep it short, but I can't remember what happened. But I think I got sick. I think my car,
think you did.
exploded, or my wheel fell off. I don't know, something. My whole life fell apart, like during that whole film. And so I go, oh yeah, this is just the standard, spiritual warfare. Like if you work on a Tammy Lane project, you better pray up and be ready for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. He prayed up. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, even just on the technical side, we had multiple cameras go down on that production. We had,
Washington's armor,
a
yeah.
pandemic
Yeah.
hit right in the middle of the production.
I
Like,
know.
yeah, just crazy stuff that happened on that project. But shout out to you for overcoming adversity.
Thank you. Yeah.
Um,
Perseverance.
Yeah. Well, looking ahead into before we finally wrap out, is there anything on the horizon for you that you're looking, to accomplish the rest of this year, or upcoming films, or what's next on your plate?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's a film called. Well, we don't know what it's called yet. But it's about a cowboy that was struck by lightning. And he's the cowboy entrepreneur. I mean, he's all over the internet, so you could just look that up. But they have asked me to direct that film. And, it's not, I don't think it's done deal yet, but we're hoping that pans out. And they'll be filming a lot at Capernaum. And so that'd be fun. And hopefully you can be on that film as well.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Well, for people who want to connect with you more, how can people find you outside of this podcast?
So go to CapernaumStudios.com. You can find everything there. And yeah, and if you want to send me an email or whatever, you can send it to Capernaum Studios, Capernaum@TammyLaneProductions.com, and then they'll get it to me. And I'm on Facebook. So Tammy Cox Lane. Cox is my maiden name. Yeah. So, or you can go to Washington'sArmor.com.
Love it. Love it. Well, Tammy, thank you so much for driving all the way out here from Weatherford. I know it's a hike. I've made the trek, but we are very grateful for your time, your wisdom, your trust in us, in making your films. We're humbled by just all that you have helped offer us in our careers. And so thank you for taking the time to come out here and share your wisdom with our fans and audience.
Well, it was fun. I'm glad to do it.
I love it. Well, guys, this has been a great episode of the Rough Cut Club. Be sure to like, subscribe, do all of those fun things to connect with us as well. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Rough Cut Club.